Okay, so today we're diving into really quite a significant legal and constitutional fight.
Yeah, it's unfolding right now, isn't it? Between the U.S. government and, well, basically all the major news outlets.
Exactly. And it's not just, some minor political thing. This is shaping up to be potentially the biggest First Amendment battle we've seen in, what, decades?
That's what analysts are saying. Absolutely.
Mm.
So our goal today really is to help you navigate this. We want to look closely at these new Pentagon restrictions
Right.
because we need to grasp the details, why experts are calling these rules potentially the most serious violation of press freedom under the Constitution. That's a heavy statement.
It really is. And the whole thing seems to have kicked off with this government memo, right? Came out Friday, September 19th.
That's the one. From Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's office. It details these sweeping new policies.
And the core mechanism, the leverage, it's access, isn't it?
It's all about access. Reporters have to sign this pledge. They have to agree not to report anything the Pentagon labels unauthorized.
Even if it's not classified information.
That's the crucial point. Even unclassified stuff. If they don't sign, bang, credentials revoked. Instantly.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack that restriction itself. This idea that reporters need government approval before publishing, even unclassified details. That feels, well, fundamentally different.
It's a huge departure. A really dramatic one.
Yeah.
We need to be clear, about classified versus unclassified.
Sure.
Traditionally, if a reporter somehow got hold of classified secrets, the government could try to stop publication. Though even that's legally very, very difficult.
Right, the bar is incredibly high for that. But this new rule, the sources are clear, it's aimed squarely at unclassified information.
Precisely. Think about it. Historically, a reporter digs up something through their own sources. Maybe a delay in troop movements or some odd budget item. It's not classified.
Yeah.
They could publish it, whether the Pentagon liked it or not. This new policy, it essentially gives the government a veto over news that isn't even secret.
And the consequence for saying, no, I won't agree to that, the credential threat, it sounds pretty brutal.
It is. Don't
Yeah.
sign the pledge, you lose your press pass.
Yeah.
Immediately. And historically. This is significant.
Oh, so.
Well, it's the first time major news organizations could be barred from unclassified parts of the Pentagon, specifically because of content restrictions.
So not for breaking a security rule like wandering into a restricted area, but for what they might write later.
Exactly. The message is, cover the building, sure, but only if we get to pre-approve what you say about it. It effectively shuts down their day-to-day ability to cover the military independently.
And Secretary Hegseth, he's defended this publicly.
Oh, very publicly. Use social media, X. He wrote, the press does not run the Pentagon, the people do.
Okay.
And then,
Okay.
the press is no longer allowed to roam the halls of a secure facility, wear a badge, and follow the rules or go home.
So he's framing it as secure internal rules.
Yeah, discipline, security, access control,
Yeah.
that's the official line. But, the media organizations, they see that as rhetoric, as a cover, as a thin veil for mandating state-approved reporting, using secure facility as the excuse.
But couldn't the government lawyers try to argue it is just an access rule? Like a company setting conditions for visitors. How do the media lawyers push back on that?
Well, that's precisely the legal fight, isn't it? The counter-argument goes like this. This rule isn't just about physical access. It directly controls the reporter's speech.
After they leave the building.
Right. It forces them to trade their First Amendment right to report freely in exchange for that physical access.
Yeah.
Look, if the rule was just don't bring recording devices into Area X, okay, that's maybe an access rule.
Makes sense.
But when it says don't publish information we haven't okayed, even unclassified info learned elsewhere, that steps over the line into controlling content. It becomes a prior restraint.
And that term, prior restraint, keeps coming up. Let's zero in on that.
Yeah, we should. For anyone listening who isn't familiar, prior restraint is the legal term for when the government tries to censor speech before it happens, stops it before it even gets out.
And that's considered particularly bad under the First Amendment.
It's considered the absolute worst, the most serious kind of First Amendment violation, because it prevents ideas from even entering the public discussion.
And we saw the Freedom of the Press Foundation. They specifically called this policy a prior restraint.
They did. They flagged it immediately.
Yeah.
Said it operates as a prior restraint on publication, calling it the most serious type of violation.
And there's history here, right? Legal history.
Absolutely. Massive history. The Supreme Court drew a very clear line in the sand against prior restraints way back in 1971. The Pentagon Papers case, probably the most famous First Amendment case ever.
Right.
In that decision, the court basically said the government has an incredibly difficult job, a heavy presumption against it, anytime it tries to stop publication beforehand,
Yeah.
even when they claim national security.
So how does this new Pentagon rule try to get around that? What's the danger critics see?
Well, someone like Kenneth Roth from the human rights world, he warned about this. He said journalists who try to report anything beyond the sort of official propaganda.
Beyond the proved talking points.
Exactly. They now face immediate punishment, not jail time for leaking secrets necessarily.
But losing their job, essentially, their ability to report on the military at all.
Precisely. For reporting unclassified facts that maybe just make the Pentagon look bad or contradict the official story, it turns reporters into, well, one expert used the word stenographers.
Stenographers. That's stark, just typing up what they're told.
If every story has to be pre-cleared by the defense secretary's office. Yeah. The military essentially gets to write its own news coverage. And the public, who pays for both the military and relies on the press, gets, well, not independent reporting.
You get a press corps that's essentially captive.
That's the fear. And the professional groups like the Society of Professional Journalists, SPJ, they reacted strongly. They said the policy reeks of prior restraint.
Reeks of it. Strong words.
And called it a dangerous step toward government censorship. They definitely see a pattern here, an attempt to control the press by controlling who gets in the door.
Okay, so the legal threat is clear. What about the industry reaction? You mentioned the news outlets.
Yeah, what's really striking when you look at the sources is the unity. I mean, these major news outlets, they compete fiercely every single day.
Always trying to scoop each other.
Right. But on this, they've lined up shoulder to shoulder almost instantly to condemn this policy.
Who are we talking about?
Oh, the big ones. CNN, the New York Times, Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, Reuters. They all put out strong statements against it.
That level of unity is unusual. It tells you how serious they think this is.
It shows they see it as an existential threat to how they operate, how they gather news. The New York Times, for instance, their statement called the policy at stark odds with the constitutional protections of a free press in a democracy. And they framed it as part of a concerning pattern of reducing access to military information.
So not just a one-off rule, but part of something bigger they're seeing.
That's how they view it. And it's across different types of media, too. We saw NPR's editor-in-chief confirming they're coordinating with others.
What did NPR say?
They said they're working with other news organizations to push back. And they emphasized their commitment to transparency, making sure the public knows what the government is doing, not just reading government press releases.
Because, logically, if the only news allowed out of, say, the Pentagon has to be pre-approved by the Pentagon, well, that's not independent reporting anymore, is it?
It's fundamentally not.
Yeah.
And, putting this in context, we heard from veteran reporters, too. Barbara Starr.
Longtime CNN Pentagon correspondent.
Yeah, decades covering the building. She called the whole thing extremely troubling. And she pointed out the timing.
What of the timing?
She noted it's happening in an atmosphere of, quote, unprecedented public hostility from Secretary Hegseth himself towards the media.
So that context makes the press even more suspicious. They see it less as a security measure and more as punitive.
That's certainly how it's being interpreted by many in the press corps, as an attack, not a regulation.
Okay, so the media is united. What about the political reaction? Usually these things split down party lines.
Well, that's maybe the most surprising part of this whole story, the criticism of Hegseth's policy. It's coming from both sides of the aisle. It's actually bipartisan.
Bipartisan opposition to a move by a defense secretary? That is interesting.
It really is. We found quotes from prominent Republicans openly disagreeing. Representative Don Bacon, Republican from Nebraska.
What did he say?
He was remarkably blunt. He called the move, quote, so dumb that I have a hard time believing it is true.
Wow. Okay, that's direct.
And he didn't stop there. He used this really pointed historical comparison. He warned his colleagues, we don't want a bunch of Pravda newspapers only touting the government's official position.
Pravda, comparing it to the old Soviet state newspaper.
Yeah. I mean, invoking Pravda, that shows you how seriously some in Congress view this restriction on the press as potentially leading to state-controlled news.
And maybe even more significant, what about the White House? Is the president backing his defense secretary on this?
Well, that's another fascinating wrinkle. There seems to be some daylight there. President Trump was asked directly, should the Pentagon decide what reporters can report?
And his answer?
He said, no, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And then he added something quite characteristic.
Let me guess. Something about reporters.
You got it. He said, listen, Nothing stops reporters, you know that.
Huh. So a public disagreement, essentially, or at least not a ringing endorsement.
It suggests a potential disconnect, yeah. If the president isn't fully behind his defense secretary on these specific content rules, well, that definitely weakens the Pentagon's position, legally and politically.
Especially as they brace for lawsuits.
Exactly. It raises questions about whether this policy even has unified support within the administration itself.
Okay, so let's tie all these strands together. Legal challenges incoming, media united against it, even bipartisan political pushback. What are the actual stakes here for the listener?
Well, the timeline is immediate. We know media lawyers are poring over that 17-page memo right now. Lawsuits are expected literally within days.
The legal gears are already turning.
Absolutely. And groups like the Knight First Amendment Institute, they see this as part of a, quote, broader assault on free speech and press freedom.
Do they think the press will win in court based on the Pentagon Papers precedent?
Most legal experts believe the precedent strongly favors the press. That heavy presumption against prior restraint is a huge hurdle for the government.
There's always a but with legal predictions.
There is. The current composition of the Supreme Court adds a layer of uncertainty, always. But the core precedent is very strong.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate. What if the government does win? What if the courts somehow uphold this?
That's where the really profound danger lies. If the Supreme Court says, yes, the Pentagon can demand pre-approval of unclassified information as a condition of accesses, then that ruling becomes a template. The sources we looked at were really clear on this danger. Any government agency, education, transportation, EPA, you name it, could potentially adopt the exact same model.
Want access to our buildings and officials? Sign here agreeing to let us vet your stories first.
Precisely. Access for approval becomes the norm across the government.
And that's the real so what for everyone listening, isn't it? It fundamentally changes the relationship between the press and the government.
Completely. It erodes the independence of reporting on everything the government does, paid for by taxpayers. The journalist shifts from being a watchdog
To being more like a PR agent for the state.
That's the fear. It institutionalizes narrative control. This isn't just about keeping actual secrets. It's about shaping the public story.
So this is truly a major constitutional fight. The outcome could reshape things for decades.
Without a doubt. It's about the fundamental role of a free press in relation to the government.
Okay, so as we watch for these legal challenges to drop, here's something for you, the listener, to think about. A final question, really. Okay, given that incredibly strong Pentagon Papers precedent against prior restraint, if this case reaches the Supreme Court, what specific arguments, what conditions might the court possibly use to say, okay, this situation is different?
That's the key question. How could they distinguish it?
Yeah. Where is the line for national security when the information itself is officially unclassified? What could possibly override that heavy presumption against censorship in this specific context?
Those are exactly the thorny questions the courts, potentially the Supreme Court, will have to grapple with. And the answers will absolutely shape the future of journalism and government transparency in America.
It's a huge case to watch. Well, if you found this discussion useful today, please do consider liking and subscribing if you're listening on YouTube.
Or give us a follow if you're listening over on Spotify. It really helps others find the analysis.